Congratulations on embarking on your mobile chicken coop journey. So if we look at the internet, it's full of ornate and elaborate chicken coop designs that rival house builds. But truthfully, no matter how gorgeous those coops are, at the end of the day, they all end up the same. Smelly, expensive, inefficient to clean, and rat prone. So it's really not the best design. And ultimately, those people that were so excited about building those coops in the beginning become dejected and decide simply owning chickens, it's not something they want to do anymore. So we're here today to show you a really incredible mobile coop design that will add efficiency to your system. If you don't know me by now, I'm Scott Vernon, the founder of the Sustainable Homestead Institute, and I've gotten a lot of benefits from these mobile coop designs. Ultimately, the highest quality produce that you can get from your backyard, but simply it saves me time, saves me money, saves me the back-breaking effort of cleaning out a coop, while it builds systems that enhance the landscape in a regenerative agriculture sort of way. So come with me as we build this coop and enhance your chicken owning adventures. So what follows is the most efficient mobile coop that we've been able to find. We've done hoop coops, Salatin style tractors, but I really like these because they're easy for anybody to move. But it's not available in any stores. You're gonna have to build it yourself. And if you're worried about that at all, well, one, I'm thankful that you picked up this guide, but you don't have to be, because this is a perfect weekend project for people looking to start their own homestead. So when I think about my evolution, I remember as a young child, my dad and I built a rabbit hutch for a rabbit in our suburban backyard. And while I wasn't much help other than moral support, that build planted the seeds for me to be where I am now. And I hope that this build plants seeds for your family to come together and create resilient individuals. It's not just about feeding ourselves, it's about creating habits, creating resilient individuals that can tackle any challenge that is raised before them, and being able to build stuff that's part of that key. Whether it's businesses, homesteads, or whatever you can think of, it starts by creating a plan, following the procedure, and having an awesome result at the end of it. So let's get started. So along the way, you're gonna have some choices to make as we go through this build, like how to connect the wires to the outside or how to join the boards together to themselves. The choices you make will be determined by the tools that you have on hand and the investment that you want to make in hardware and the longevity of your coop and the serviceability. There's lots of choices that we can make. We've outlined those as we go throughout this video, but ultimately the nuances of this build make this build accessible to anybody, regardless of the tools that you have on hand. So if you don't have tools, don't worry, we got you. This is a very easy build and can be accomplished with minimal tooling. We're standing in the educational shop that's pretty well equipped, and all of these tools add to our efficiency, but they're not necessary to get started in building this chicken coop. The right tool for the right job makes this job significantly easier and repeatable. If you're not building one coop, let's run down the basic tools that you'll need. You'll need some adjustable wrenches. These will be used to put nuts onto the axle. You'll need a tape measure. Even though we've taken every length to give you the right measurements for this build, you're gonna have to confirm measurements. Whether your boards are cupped or twisted a little bit, you need to account in your own plan. And a tape measure is the only way to do that. A speed square is a great and essential tool in framing and construction. It sits on the edge. We'll go more into this further in the video, but it sits on the edge of boards and allows you to lay out roof rafters, but ultimately, and probably most importantly, it allows you to scribe square lines. If you don't have a chop saw, those square lines will be important in cutting the boards. You'll need some wire snips. Because we're working with hardware cloth, you're gonna need a way to cut that. I've gotten a lot of success out of these jewelry clips. These are jewelry wire snips, but you could use needle nose pliers, you could use shears, whatever is gonna cut the wire to the level of precision that you want. You'll need some sort of way to cut the roofing material. We've used one of these cutoff wheels to a lot of success, but the downside of this is it shoots sparks and it may damage the material. So what roofers are using a lot of times are these roofing shears that can cut through metal. And these are a whole lot cheaper than a cutoff wheel. Another thing might be a nibbler. A nibbler is an attachment to your drill that allows you to cut through roofing material easily. A handsaw. If you don't have a chop saw, you're gonna need a handsaw. Whether that be like your Baco Laplander or one of these like Irwin handsaws. If you're doing this by hand, you need a way to cut the boards, because when you buy boards from the store, they typically come in these 8-foot sections. A lot of big box stores will cut the material down to size for you, but that often is at an expense that would more than cover the cost of a handsaw. A chalk line. When we're laying out a roof, there's only one way to ensure that that roof is square or you're cutting straight lines. And the way we do that is a chalk line. We'll show you that later in the video. This is like 10 bucks. All these tools together are less than 100 bucks. Check the Amazon links in the write-up for more of that. The last things that you're gonna need is a drill bit to pre-drill. Now that's a debate. Is it drill or is it pre-drill? It's drill, but for the purposes of this, we want to pre-drill our screw, create a hole, because working with some of this smaller dimension lumber, it's easy to split those boards. So we need a drill, a driver. Now these could be in the same thing, right? We could just take the drill bit out, put the driver in there, reducing some cost that way. But having a drill and a separate driver is really nice. So the Phillips driver, but also when we go to put the roofing screws on, they don't have a Phillips bit a lot of times. So we need a 1/4-inch drive or some drive bit that will accept the roofing screws. You see how these roofing screws have a hexagonal top? We need something that's gonna drive those in. That's what I'm talking about in this 1/4-inch socket and driver. We're gonna need some way to attach wire to the boards and the frame of the coop. The easiest way that we found is a pneumatic stapler. You'll see this featured a lot coming in this build. It uses staples. These are 18 gauge, 1-inch staples, and they make it really easy to put the wire to the frame. If you don't want to do that, and you don't want to invest in an air compressor and a staple gun, you can use a 1 5/8 screw and a washer and drive them in. We've done this on our larger hoop coops. These will last longer than those staples, and an added benefit is that if we need to replace that wire, we can unscrew these screws and washers, put a new piece of wire down, and screw them back. And it avoids us having to buy an air compressor, having to buy a staple gun. So the screw and the washer is a great method for attaching the wire. The downside is it's a little bit more expensive. If you're building out a bunch of these coops, again, time is money. The nailer might be a better option for you. Let's talk about lumber and hardware. These are the expendable items that we're gonna put together to become the chicken coop. They're separate from tools because tools allow us to do things. The expendables, the hardware, the lumber, this is like the nuts and bolts of the build itself. So let's start with lumber. So we're gonna need 3 cuts of lumber from the lumber section of the big box store. Here we have a 2x4. Now this is pressure treated, so it goes through an extra process to be resistant to moisture and in some cases ground contact. We have a 2x4, we have 2x2s, and then we have 2x1s that'll help us out in the build for the roof, essentially. Our frame is made up of these 2x2s, or these 2x4s, but I'm gonna show you on this 2x2 what to look for in lumber. So when you go to the store, a lot of these pieces of lumber are trash and they ultimately get returned back to the sawmill, but if somebody will buy them, but that's not you. So we want to look for lumber that's free from knots as much as possible. On these small sections, it's most important because a knot is where a limb grows out of the tree, but those represent weak spots in the board most of the time. So when you pick these 2x2s up, if you see a knot that's taking up a large section, give it a shake and sometimes it'll even break. So we want a structurally stable board, but that's not everything that we're looking in the board. The way that trees grow, there's lots of stresses inside of that wood. Now the sawmill does the best job they can in making sure that these boards are flat, but as they sit and they dry over time, they will start cupping or bowing or twisting. And we want to look for that in the lumber that we get. So hopefully this works for you. We can see whether the bow is twisting or cupping. So we look down the edge. I like to put it down on the floor, look down the edge, it looks straight, turn it, look down the other side, and it looks straight. That's how we know we're getting a board. So I've done that with all the material that I bought for these builds and made sure that these pieces of lumber will hold up over time. Consult the manual that goes along with this video and will actually give you how many of these that you need for the build to save you time and money when you go to the store, not overbuying materials and buying just what you need. So let's talk about hardware. The drive axle for this build is a piece of 3/4 10 threaded rod. Now what that 10 means is that's the thread pitch, but we're looking for, it could be anything. As long as your nuts match the rod, you'll be okay. So we went with 3/4 threaded rod. This is 6 feet long. This is the widest piece of the coop, and it will stretch from one end to the other and hold onto our bike wheels. Now these aren't just like normal bike wheels. These are actually like rickshaw tires. They hold more weight. I think these are rated for, I don't want to tell you wrong. Check the link in the book and it'll tell you, but they're not your average bike wheels. What's the average bike hold? Maybe 200 pounds. The chicken coop that we're building is gonna be a little bit heavier than that. Sure, so we wanna size these wheels appropriately to the coop. These are 26-inch and they make for a nice stable structure. But to hold that, we have the threaded rod that we just talked about. In order to keep those tires on the rails, let's say, we're gonna use a series of nuts and lock washers and flat washers. So we need to size these things accordingly. Check the book for the measurements and the build list. But we have nuts, we have lock washers, and we have flat washers. And the way these work is the flat washer typically sits against the board, as you'll see in later diagrams. The lock washer fits between that flat washer and the nut, and when it tightens down, this actually acts as a spring and gives some expansion force so that this nut is not rolling off. And that's super important for this build. So we need the threaded rod and the hardware that goes along with it. We're also probably gonna need some bracketry and some reinforcement brackets. Are they absolutely essential? No, but will they provide a lot in the longevity of your coop? Absolutely. So we have these are Simpson strong tie corner brackets, and they give us a little bit of extra holding for when we want to move this coop. Gives it a little bit more rigidity, and ultimately will have the coop last for a lot longer. I really like these Simpson strong ties. We see these in construction all the time, but now we're building it, we're bringing it to chicken coop construction. We're gonna need some other reinforcements, mainly for the roof section because we build that out of the 2x2 material. So we have these Reliabuilt 2-inch brackets. We also have these T-shaped brackets that will go on the top of the roof. And the roof is hinged, so we need some hinges to go along with that. We'll need to keep the roof closed, so we have these hook and eye assemblies. We'll have another hinge for the ramp that goes in the back. And then we will need to also secure that ramp. Should have brought this earlier, but we will need a hook. The hook will fit onto a chain, but how do we secure this chain to the back of the coop? The way that I like to do it is an 1 5/8 screw through the washer, through the chain. That could be a staple, lots of ways to do it, but you will need one of these 3/16 by 1 1/4 washers. Again, check the book. As we assemble this coop, we will need 3-inch screws. These are exterior decking screws. And I say exterior decking screws because they can take abuse from moisture and being outside. If you're using drywall screws, they're not gonna last very long. But these are coated in a way that makes them more resistant to being outside. So we're looking for exterior wood screws frequently used in decking. We'll need 2 sizes, an 1 5/8 and 3 inches. If you want to spend the extra money, these 3-inch screws in a lot of cases can become 3.5-inch screws, but they're more expensive and I don't find that that's necessary. So to keep the cost down, we've chosen 3-inch screws for this build. The last thing I want to talk about is a mend plate. End plates are frequently used in truss design. That's what holds up your roof. And it's where 2 boards are married together and need to be secured. So they put one from this side, drop a bunch of nails or screws into them, and it adds a little bit more rigidity. I like these for the front support, as you'll see coming in the video. We have an option to hold the support brackets with these Simpson L-shape anchors. Now this is great if you don't want to buy extra tools, but what we like to use is the Craig pocket hole system. This is a more professional model. You'll see how this works, but it drills a hole on angle, so it allows us to use this Craig proprietary screw with a large flat base to make for a really clean joinery. And I find that it's a lot less expensive than using these angle brackets at every intersection from a horizontal to a vertical post. We really like the Craig system, but we don't need to do that. We're going to show you how to use a method called toe holding or toe nailing that accomplishes the same thing as the Craig system, but it just doesn't give us the high quality look that's important to me. So I guess now's a good time to talk about like the acceptable tolerances. At the end of the day, all construction is using finer materials to cover gaps in the system. So the framers come in, they have wider tolerances than say like the frame is covered by sheetrock, is covered by spackle and paint, it's covered by trim, and at each one of those levels, it's a finer and finer grade product that makes things more appeasing and appealing to the eye. For this project, we're the framers, and at the end of the day, it's just a chicken coop. I forgot to mention this hardware cloth. Now this is 1/2-inch spacing, 2 feet, but I think when I bought this roll it was 100 feet. Check the link in the book. But it's different from chicken wire because it's welded and it's a whole lot stronger, a whole lot stiffer. That's why we choose it for these chicken coops. It's easy to work with and it's something that you're gonna have to have in building this coop. So we're gonna start building the frame. The frame is made up by 2 outside runners, 2 inside rails, a board at the back, a board at the front, and a center ledger. Well, a ledger that goes about 6 feet. We'll show you how all this comes together. But first, we need to cut these to length and mark where our threaded rod is gonna go. If we're doing this without a chop station like you'll see me use, we need to measure it out. And the way to do that is put your measuring tape at one end of the board, come out to your 6 feet. We're cutting 2 6-foot sections. Put your pencil on the 6 foot and then bring your speed square up to the line or up to your pencil and then draw the line. So if you have a chop station like the one behind us, it makes it really efficient to make boards that are the same length. So instead of marking them out, I set my stop, bring the board to the station, make sure it's parallel with the fence. So now we need to set where our holes are gonna go for the drive shaft. So we measure 1 foot off of all these boards and do the same technique, mark the line, put our speed square up, mark our line there. We're gonna do it across all 4 of these boards and keeping those directions in mind. Mark it at 1/2, speed square goes on, remove the tape, mark the line. Over here, these are our 8-foot runners. We're doing the same thing. Mark the 1 foot, speed square to the pencil, mark the line. Again, 1 foot, pencil goes there, speed square to the pencil. Now we have our lines marked. So these are our frame rails, the boards that go long ways, but we need to mark the center. So let me show you this cool trick that the speed square has built into it to find and make sure we're marking all of these in the same spot. A 2x4, they say it's 2 by 4 inches. Actually, it's a little bit closer to 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So we're looking for about 1.75 inches. So you notice the ruler built into the speed square, but these divots on the other side provide an equal space place to put your pencil and then draw your line through. Now when I do this, I want to reference off the same side and then put an arrow so that I know that this will face down and all of these will stand and be at the same spot. So I come back to this one, find my 1.75 line, right? Yeah, 1.75, draw it. And then mark the reference side with an arrow. Come to this one, 1.75, 1.75, reference side. Now we need to drill a hole for our drive shaft. The Forstner bit digs in. You can keep it relatively straight just by monitoring the way that the chips come off. If you don't have a drill press, you can do this with a hand drill. So now I'm going to cut 2 boards that are 5 feet long, and that's the same steps that we've done before, so I'll spare you the time on that. But I need 2 5-foot boards. To complete the frame, I need 1 more board that's 56.75 inches. These boards together. I'm using my speed square to make sure that we're all lined up the way that we need to be. I'm drilling the hole and then securing with a 3 or a 3.5 inch screw, whichever one you like. So we've got our frame, the outside rim board of the frame made with 8s and 5s. Notice the overall measurement is 5 feet. And we cut these boards beforehand that we drilled the holes through. I'm going to use these as a gauge to mount the front ledger so I don't have to measure it. And I just put it up. Same with the other side. And this 56.75 ledger board fits right inside. Check it for square. Pretty good. Drill and screw. We've got the box frame built with our front ledger attached, and we need to create a place for these inside rails to go. I like to measure 20 inches off the center. This is 20 inches, but we want this board to be on center of that. And all that means is we just line it up so that the center of the board lines up with that hash mark. And we can eyeball it. It's not super important. On center. We measure 20 inches, put our mark, line this board up on the center. Do the same thing up top, and we're good to go. We've built so many of these that we've made these gauges to go between the frame rails, and it works pretty good. Thanks, Fred. Now if you see a gap, don't worry about this too much because the boards may be bowed. We checked for that in the beginning, but the screws will pull all this together. Now all we gotta do is drill and screw. If you've assembled the frame right, you should be able to look through all these holes, your reference marks pointing down to the ground. If you have an assembly table, this really helps. But now we're gonna push the threaded rod through the hole. Watch your face. But we're going to stop just shy of the last partition. Now we need to put nut, the lock washer, and the flat washer on. Goes on first, the lock washer, and then the flat washer. And we're going to roll it all the way back because we have to push it through to be able to add it to the other side. These are on in this fashion, nut, lock washer, washer. Now we'll push it through. Now it's easy to get caught in the trap of hitting this with a hammer. You don't want to do that. Hit it with a piece of wood, but if you hit it with a hammer, you'll damage these threads and make it difficult to get through the threaded rod. It helps if you've got a buddy in doing this process. So we need to roll that nut that Freddie's working on now. We need to roll it up so that this end can get through, and we can repeat these steps on this side as well, leaving about 6 inches of drive shaft coming through on either side. So oftentimes these are hard to get started where the threaded rod has been deformed in transit. But if you take your adjustable wrench and just twist it on, it'll most of the time blow through that area that's being difficult, and it'll thread on easier. And once it gets going, it's only the ends that are deformed. But that's the deformity that you get if you hit it with a hammer, so avoid that. Now we're gonna roll this. I think these are, I don't want to tell you wrong, but like almost 50 cents a piece for these big ones. That adds up pretty quick. And if we're doing this for profit, every cent counts. So the lock washer now goes on, then the flat washer, and we pull it back through and put it through the hole, leaving about 6 inches remaining on either side. Now we can tighten this nut down against the board, getting it pretty snug. Now we're gonna repeat this pattern on this side. Flat washer, lock washer, and the nut. Now we take our adjustable wrenches, and at the same time, we're turning both of these because we wanna keep that 6 inches of extension outside the frame rail. Until it feels pretty secure. We want to add these Simpson strong tie bracings if we're going to. Now they go here at the front, here on the inside of the caged area, and then again at the back. We don't want to put them up here because we have an assembly that's going to go there in the next step. But we'll screw these in with 1 5/8" screws, and I found that these don't really require pre-drilling. Probably none of the 2x4s require pre-drilling. Definitely the 2x4s. It just makes me feel better when we do. I'm going to pull it this way. A really nice upgrade to your drill and driver is a magnetic bit, and it allows you to hold the screws on there with one hand while you move your pieces into place with the other. Assembly to support the front. We're going to put wheels on that drive shaft, but we have to keep the front off the ground. So we're going to attach a board here, and probably the most complex part of the build is creating this piece. Now it's a mitered edge that fits onto the bottom board, connects with the outside in a toe hold fashion, and then fits flush with the bottom of this board that we're attaching. So we have to set that up. So to create this front riser assembly, we need one piece of wood that's 14.5 inches, and the other is 14 and 11/16. These are a template that we made so we can batch these out, and they'll come into play in the future, but I'll show you how to do it from scratch. So the first thing we do, 17 and 11/16. We've set our measurement, and from the scrap, we're cutting, there's 1 and there's 2. Add this to our, I'm saving all the waste so I can show you that there's really not very much waste at the end of this build. So now we need to turn our miter saw to 40, or our chop saw, excuse me. We're gonna turn our chop saw to 45 degrees and align our blade so that it nips off just the end of this board. And 2. This is the hardest part of the build. Against a flat back, I wanna put the 14.5 inch board and a piece of scrap. That allows me to align this, one more piece of scrap. That allows me to align these boards so that that fits flush, and then we can mark with our pencil what's hanging over. Not too bad. So cut that off, and we can do that with the handsaw. We could maybe do it with the chop saw, but I really like using the bandsaw for this process. This is a bandsaw. It uses a thin blade that travels around this circle and a drive wheel in here to power it. Now all I do is I just follow the lines and be real careful. Let's see how it looks on the board we just made. That's pretty much right on. I'll take it. I'll secure these with 2.5 or 3 inch screws, whatever you have available. So check this out. It'll go right here, screw to the side, fit up there real nicely. Now we need to make the opposite of this for the other side. So now this assembly that we just built mounts in the corner. That's why we didn't want to put one of these brackets there, but it mounts in the corner with 3-inch screws. Because we're so close to the grain or the end of the wood, I really find it's beneficial to drill these holes. Sometimes that'll happen. This next piece, I want to show you a technique called toe nailing. So we start with the bit going perpendicular to the grain, pull it out a little bit, and now we can go straight. And we have a vertical hole going through there. Attach with a 3-inch screw. I'm not supremely confident in having that one screw there, though a lot of the bearing is there. So I'm gonna come in with a mend plate. This is something that is used in truss design for building roofs, but it allows a little bit of extra strength. So we're gonna sink 1 5/8 inch screws through every one of these holes mounted on this plane. And we're just gonna repeat the process of adding this upright to the side. So we've built the frame, we've got our drive shaft through. We now need to cover the bottom of the coop with the wire. Now's the easiest time to do it before we add the uprights. So this is the choice that you have to make. You can either invest in an air compressor and like a pneumatic nailer, and that makes the job really easily, or you can use a screw and a washer. We've used this technique on a lot of our coops, but the washer goes through and then secures to the board, just the way that like the staple would. And it really does a nice job of securing that wire down. Now the downside to these staples is they aren't replaceable like these screws are, but they are cheaper. If a piece is damaged, we can pull these screws out, replace the wire, be good to go. But it gets you into building one of these coops without spending, you know, 150, 175 bucks on a nailer, plus the cost of an air compressor. So I wanted to share this with you now. Also, this becomes a great technique for when we're doing the sides of the coop and you need to position this wire if you only have one person. You can secure one end of the wire, pull it out to the other side, nail it, cut it to length, and it makes the whole process easier. So a screw and a washer goes a long way. But we're gonna use the pneumatic nailer because we built so many of these and it's just easier. So we're gonna look and align these the best that we can. Hopefully your things are parallel. This one looks pretty good. We wanna come a little bit off the back. It helps if you have a buddy. But I'm aligning this board like 3, so it's a 1/2 inch deep. We've got 2 cells overlaid here. Now I take the nailer, make sure it looks good, and give it 4 in the corner. And that's a good start. Now I can run the long side, and that's the easiest way to do it. Then come back and pull it tight as I work across the coop. So we lay it out, make sure it's even on this side. The equal hangover, if it is, we can run our staples in, but we want to work from one side to the other, and that keeps the tension on the wire the whole time. Now you want to put your safety glasses on for this because this is prone to like send a little piece of wood back in your face. So we come to the scrap pile and we're cutting, remember how we made that frame rail gauge earlier? We're cutting these supports to fit now between these frame rails. We need to cut 4 of those, and I'll show you why in a second. So we set our gauge, cut 4. We talked about on center earlier, and we want to do the same thing, except we're going to do it like on stagger. So the way we do that, we want these boards to be roughly on center. So we take our overall measurement, should be like what, 75 inches, so 37.5, make an on center mark. Do the same thing over on this side, 37.5 on the back. And we're gonna do that all the way across. But we wanna come to this side, maybe by 2 inches. Now we messed up because we already started securing this panel, the wire panel, but it doesn't really matter because we'll get it in there. We're gonna have to drill it. We use our speed square to check for square. Is it in the right spot? If it is, then drill it and attach it with 3-inch screws. But this is where we want to add some extra support for the waterer. We really like these 5-gallon waterers. We've got a link in the information packet in the design plan. But this, if we left it just to sit on the screen, it's only a matter of time till it destroys that hardware cloth. So we want to add a support, and this depends on your waterer, but we're about 10 inches on center. When this blocking goes in and it's screwed with the 3-inch screw, it gives a nice resting platform for the chickens to have access to water. So we'll drill, screw these, and then add the final blocking to the other side before we go back to the wire. So we've got the center section nailed. Now we just got to repeat this process twice to have the frame, or the bottom of the frame, complete. So we roll it out, align it, make sure it looks good, nail it up. The base is done. It's time to build the uprights that will support the top plate and give the chickens a caged area where they can go. But to do that, we need 13 21.5-inch 2x4 sections. Now that 21.5-inch is determined by the hardware cloth that you select, but because we've got 2-foot hardware cloth, that 21.5 inches works really good for us. 13, ready to go. Here they come. We got 13 of these uprights made. They're gonna go together like this on the corners of the frame. Now, this is where you get to choose your own adventure a little bit. We're gonna mount these to make an L bracket, but the next step is determined by how you're going to attach them. We can toenail them and just like drill through, drill a perpendicular hole, pick the drill up and drill down through there. But what we like to do is use the Craig jig. Another option is those Simpson L brackets, where you screw them here. That's an option too. But the Craig jig is really nice, and let me show that to you now. So if we come over here, we have a setup where we do the Craig drilling. Now you'll need a jig. This is one of the more expensive ones that they have, and we've mounted it to a block of wood so it goes into the vise. But the Craig system is a way to drill pocket hole screws. And the pocket hole is just an angled screw that allows you to send these screws with a large flat face at the top at an angle and kind of does the toenailing for you, just with like a higher quality and consistent result. It comes with a drill bit, and you'll set it up to the material that you want using like the thickness gauge over here on the side of the jig. See, we've got it set up for a 2x4. You get your depth using this collar and putting it at the back of the jig, depending on how thick your material is going to be. You just line it up and you're good to go. So now when we take these boards, we clamp them into the jig so they don't walk around. We can take our drill and drill through the guide holes here on the back side. Unclamp, move so it lines up with the other side of the jig, drill through this far hole, and it gives us these really nice pocket holes where the screws can go through. And when we drive them through, they'll connect nicely with the board going this way. So I've got some drilling to do, and then we'll show you the next step, how to make the L-shape assembly and how to attach these to the frame. A note before we get too far, if you don't have large doors on your shop and you're kind of doing this by yourself, now will be the time to move the chicken coop build outside, because it gets heavier and heavier as we build this thing. We're creating these L-shape assemblies. So we've got them laid out the way we like them. We've got these pocket holes down towards the bottom, but we need to secure them with 3-inch screws. Get them lined up, bring them back to this jig, which is simply just a 2x4 that helps you lay those down on their edge. 3 holes and 3 screws. Now when I started this video, I said that you didn't need a whole lot of tools. And if you're looking at that Craig joiner and wondering how can we connect these to the bottom, we could simply toenail or use these Simpson brackets that mount like that and like that. But that gets expensive. And if you're building a lot of these, that Craig joint will pay for itself pretty quickly. But you don't even have to do that. You could just toenail screws through here by starting with a hole and then running it down. These pocket hole Craig screws come with a proprietary bit because the tops are square. So when they fit on there, line it up with your corner, send it on home. Now these things are gonna wanna move on you because of the nature of sending a screw at an angle. But if you're having trouble, put a clamp on it. Used a 2x2, but we really like having a 2x4 on both sides because it gives us more bearing and it feels like a more solid connection. Now, once you mount all these 4 up there, you'll have to confirm the measurements that we give you in the next pieces. But because we built so many of these, we've got guides that fit in between these. On previous versions of this, we had a 2x2 on the backing, but because these L-shaped sections are 2x4s now, we really feel like it gives a firm connection to the base, and it was worth it to have that larger board there. The nature of driving a screw at an angle will pull the board that way a little bit. So if you're having difficulty, put a clamp on it or put some downward pressure. Sweet. And moving forward, you're gonna have to confirm the measurements. But because we've built so many of these, we've made this side rail guide. So we can take this other section, put it up here, make sure our distances are correct, and then we have a back rail guide that does the same thing. And that makes sure that the measurements that come in the next piece are all square and look really good. These guides are really invaluable. And now we're gonna switch to the 2x2 material. I wanna cut 3 sections at 72 inches apiece. We're gonna use 2 of them now, but that third one is gonna be important when we come back for later steps. So let's take care of it now while we're at the chop saw. We need to cut 2 60-inch sections. Plate, we take 2 of our 72-inch sections and fix it with the 6-foot sections to create this top section of 2x4s. We'll drill and secure these down with 3-inch screws. They come in really handy. Make sure that everything is proportional when we drill these screws. See, this one's gonna have to come in. There's just the nature of it's not square because we have that little bit of wire there. The back rails attach the same way as those side rails. This is a kind of long span, and so we wanna support it again, just like we did with the L-shaped section, but this time with the rest of those pocket hole drill boards that we talked about. Remember we marked this board on center? We're just putting these boards pretty close. Continuing with the same thing. 1/2-inch pocket hole screws on the bottom, 3-inch screws at the top. We're gonna put 1 here, 1 on the other side, and then 1 in the center of the front of the coop. And that'll leave us set up for the next step. So notice we have 2 uprights left. These are gonna go on either side of the automatic door. We need to make the assembly for that to work correctly. So we come over to the chop saw and cut a board that's 8.5 inches long, and that's from the scrap pile. Take this over to the Craig joiner, and we're gonna drill 4 pocket holes on one side. So these 4 pocket holes go onto the same side as this one, just like we did before. Move the jig, hit the other side, flip the board over, and on the same side, drill the holes. Measure out the center of our board 8.5 inches, so we go 4 1/4. Bring our speed square to there, draw the line. I guess it would help if we did it on the right side as the pocket holes. 4 1/4, speed square. Now, we're gonna bring this and align this board on center with that 6-foot side. So, and by 6 feet, I mean 5 feet. Speed square off the bottom, mark the line. Now when I align this board, I know that this board will go here with the pocket holes facing down. I'll secure that. Use this as a spacer block and then mount this one in the same way. This spacer block, the reason why I drill holes in it is it's going to become the top of the door jamb. So let me secure these and we'll move on to the next. Cool, there's one side done. The other side references off that. If it's the same at the bottom as it is at the top, then we know we're square or mostly square or parallel. Spacer block, and it goes 11.5 inches off the top of the bottom board. You can make a mark, secure it. This is not on center. It's like right at 11.5. Again, the spacer block comes in really handy for this piece. Good. Take your spacer, line it up. You can take them. Cool. Now, after we put our wire up, the automatic door will fit really nicely. Pretty cool. So now we need to wrap this whole cage in wire. It happens in the same way that we did the bottom. What I find useful is measuring out the wire, cutting it, then putting it up, using the screw trick to balance, get your alignment right. Here's the one piece that can get aligned up here. I'm gonna need to cut out a little bit for these axles, but it's the same process that we've been doing the whole time on the bottom, now in a vertical manner. I like to work my way from the center and then out, and that makes for a really tight finish. So we're just gonna do the same thing. Get the staple gun out, staple the center, cut out, a handful of squares down here so it fits, nail it all up, and it'll look beautiful. Pull, staple. So I need to cut out this fence around the axle. That's just really easy. Figure out where you want it to be. Cut up and around, be done, You're gonna cut a little bit out, front side, so that it clears these support brackets. This whole cage is wrapped in hardware cloth, but we need to cut out an area for the door. So I'm just doing that now with the wire slips. It's the same process we've doing, just keep it close to the edge, make it look nice, and then run your staples back around the edge so they don't interfere with the door. In the package for that automatic door, it's come with some supplied hardware, but I find that it's really beneficial to use a flat washer and mount that behind the door to give it a little bit of offset so it's not getting caught up in anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount the door. So remember when I said earlier that as it got bigger, the harder it is to move it outside. So that's what we're doing now. We've got all the cage on, the doors on the back, but we gotta move it outside through these double doors. But first we gotta get it outside. Oh, no, keep it flat. Now we gotta turn it. Sweet. Thanks, Fred. Come on. Cool, sweet. So now it's time to secure the axles, or secure the wheels. And I do that with the big nut that we used before and a little bit of Loctite is a thread locker that when I put it on here, it lessens the chance of the nuts backing off. Do the same on the other side. We can pick this side up and push it or pull it wherever we need to go. Very exciting. Starting to come together. Let's put a roof on. So for this next step, we need two 75 inchers, two 57 inchers, and that 72-inch 2x2 that we cut in the previous step. And they'll organize like this. We'll get one side and we'll come to the other. That goes in like that. And where's that 72? All right. Now this is just like building the frame. We'll use our speed square, 3-inch screw, and then we'll put the 72-inch on center of this frame to give us a little bit extra support for the roof. So we've got our 57-inch, 75-inch, and the 72-inch from the previous step. We're just gonna go ahead and mount those like we did, pre-drill and screw with the 3-inch screw, and then mount this 72 on center of this frame so that the overall width is 5 feet and it'll cover what we're building out there. Now I'm cutting two 2x4s, 27 3/4. Two 2x2s, excuse me, 27 3/4 inches as central supports for our roof panel. We're gonna mount them off center like we've done in previous steps. So we're back to mounting some bracketry to increase the strength of this whole roof structure. We've got these T-shaped brackets that we're gonna put at the cross sections. We're not gonna do anything in the middle. I guess we could do like a men plate if we wanted to. But I think most of the structural support happens on the edge. And then we have these corner brackets that'll fit just like those Simpson strong ties here. Now we're gonna put all of these and then we're gonna flip it over because we don't want these exposed on the top. We want them on the bottom. So when we drive screws down, they're not hitting these things. An important step, but you get the idea. Time for some hardware. You can see that we added some corner brackets from Reliabelt, as well as these T brackets to help further support the roof structure. We've got the corner brackets in the center, corner brackets at the extreme, and T brackets at the intersection. But we want to flip this over before we go to the next step, because if we're driving screws down through the roof and we hit one of these, it's going to throw us off. So I'm going to flip this over, and then we're going to cut some slats so that we can attach the roof panels. These 2x1 strips are what we're going to use to lay across the top to secure our roofing tin. But we need them to have a little bit of hangover, about 1.5 inches on either side. So that gives us a 63-inch total measurement for these cuts. We have our 5 strips. So when we're spacing out these roofing slats, we want 1.5 inches overhang. We can either measure each one of those and get pretty close, or we can take one of these layout tools, set it to the distance that we want, and run it down. Now look, we're right there. Come to the center, look for our center mark. I should lay that out again. One at this end, on center, which is 37.5, and then 37.5 is, we'll do the same thing at the end, 37.5, 19, and 19. We'll lay these out to the marks and get our overhangs like we were just talking about. So again, for the overhangs, take your layout tool, put it on the mark, butt it up till you hit the board. That's where we're at. Look for your center, look for your mark, bring it out, get your overhang for your mark, bring it out, get your overhang. We're attaching these with 1 5/8 inch screws. Ooh. So notice that I jumped that. I can start the screw, and because the thing went through, I can find the hole, and we're back in business without having to measure again. We've got the 2 sides secured. Now we're gonna run them down the center just the same way we did on either side. Frame is done. Let's mount it to the Coop with some hinges. The brackets are facing down. And the hinges are going on the opposite side where we put the water support in the beginning. Take your hinge plate and mount it to the top frame and get all 3 lined up, and then we're going to come back and do the bottom. Dimensions of these boards aren't exactly right for the hinges. We need to lift that one up. I like to use my finger just to get us close enough. Then I'm going to come to this one, and that way when I come back I'm not throwing off the angle and it looks good. Handful more screws and the roof will be attached. One of the beautiful things about this Coop is that it uses 2 sheets of tin, and you overlap them one, and that gives you the right overhang for everything. So we want about 2 inches on either side. We're gonna go back to using that layout tool, the square, and we're gonna do the same technique, bumping it up against the edges. But we're leaving the overhang on this front edge. We're gonna cut that off later, but we wanna get our gaps right to minimize our cutting. So we want 2 inches at the front and the back. Now what we wanna do is go back and find those center roofing strips and mark them on center on either side. 1, 2, 3. Notice something else we did when we overlapped See this edge? It's a little bit longer and it's flat. This edge is just rolled over. This tells us how to overlap our boards. We want the flat side sitting underneath the short side. See the longer flat side underneath the short side? That's so no water will penetrate. That way we know that when we drill these screws, we know they're gonna hit the wood. And the only way that I know how to do that reliably is a chalk line. Now if you have a friend, he can grab one side and help you stretch it out and hook it where you've made that mark. If you don't, you can do it with a piece of tape and it'll stick to this tin. So we put the chalk line down, put tension on it. I ask Freddie if he's ready. He says yeah. I lift up on the chalk line and drop it. Now I pull it, roll it up again, hit it a little bit, hold the tension on the chalk line, grab it, snap it. Our roof panels are on, our chalk line is laid out. Now all we gotta do, drill holes in the chalk line that we made and secure it with the roofing screws. And notice they have like a rubber grommet. That's so that when they sink down, they'll expand and kind of eat up that gap so no rain comes in. You see how that washer sticks out from there? Gonna come down here. Coming down the home stretch, but we need to create a ramp so that the chickens can walk up through the automatic door. And in an effort to save material and keep you from having to buy a large piece of wood, I cut the remaining scrap of 2x4 into two-foot sections that I'm gonna secure with pocket hole screws to make the ramp. There's nothing for the chickens to grip on. They'll have a hard time walking up. So again, we're gonna use the 1 5/8" screw, but we're gonna cut some scrap material 7 inches. This is that 2x1 material. Before we mount this, I wanna mount a hinge. Just like we did on the top of the roof, I'm gonna mount this with the supplied hardware on the top of my board. I'm using 1 5/8" screws on this one. Board needs to hook to something, so we use these chain hooks and drill them into the side with the same drill bit that we've been using the whole time. So we'll fasten this hook to the back so that we'll grab the chain, because when we're moving this thing, we don't want this board being down on the ground.
And that would encourage people to come, and you wouldn't have to worry about shipping.
We got our hook attached. Now we're gonna attach some steps with our stapler. I use my hand to space them out. That seems about adequate. I'm not too worried about square. Sweet. Take this outside, attach it to the frame, be on to the next thing. So now I'm marking the overhang. Just like we did on these screws, I made 2 inches off the bottom board and put a mark. Come over this side, 2 inches off the bottom board, make a mark. Hold tension on the line, ask him if he's good.
Good to go.
Snap it in the middle. Sweet. So now I gotta cut this roofing material. We could use snips, or I'm gonna use a grinding wheel. Though I have heard some roof guys say that you don't wanna do that because it burns the metal that'll show up later on, these little like rusted marks, but ain't nothing but a chicken coop. Before I start, I wanna cut through the high spots and then connect the line. I found that that's the best way to do it. I'm happy with that. A little bit of sandpaper to knock this burr off, and we're good to go. The door section. We want to be pretty low on this thing, because if we're too high, it doesn't open. So we're going to use our 1 5/8" screws. Now I have a nice little door. Got 18 inches of chain. We're gonna hang that on the side with a screw and that washer that I told you about in the beginning of the video. And I wanna hang it pretty far outside. So now when this door is up, we can move it no problem. These hook and eye loops keep the top from blowing off in the wind. I like these on the bottom, and they work best, I think, when they're at a diagonal. Put the bottom in first, kind of space it out to see where it's gonna be. Pre-drill your hole. Now I need to lay out where the eye goes. There. That worked out pretty good. It's not going anywhere with that. A bracket to hold this solar panel for the automatic door. That way the battery stays charged all the time. From the scrap pile, I'm cutting the board 1 foot long. I'm turning my saw 45 degrees, and I'm nipping off the end of this, just like on that support bracket that we did earlier in the build. From here, I can use one of these pieces, provided it's 10.5 inches. 32, 44, perfect. Let's just cut it. It's going to mount on here with that toenail technique and a 3-inch screw probably, maybe 1 5/8". For this part, we're gonna have to do a little bit of customization to this solar panel, but it comes apart really easily. You can just pull with your fingers and the frame separates. Notice this little T on the electrical fits into this hole. That'll be important later on, but for now, we're gonna drill and screw this to that piece that we've already made. Mark the hole. Drill it. There's just a hole up here that's already marked. I'm gonna go right behind it. Excellent. Now these get attached, and we can put the solar panel back together. We wanna feed this through the right side. I'll line up those holes that we talked about earlier. There we go. And then put the front back on. And it snaps into place, allegedly. Towards the top. The solar panel mounts to the top with 3-inch screws from the back.
Caught your shirt.
No, maybe, whatever. Now I said we want to put this through the right side, that we can wrap it around this beam and plug it into the chicken coop. You can secure this wire with zip ties. I wouldn't feed it through the coop because the chickens will get something to pick at, but I really like these electrical staples. We finished one of these mobile meat bird tractors. I really like this design because it's on large wheels that can navigate tall grass. It allows the chickens to be out free ranging, reducing your feed cost, adding fertilization back to the landscape. It's relatively lightweight, like it's easy to pick up and move around. If you wanted to take this to the next level and maybe turn it into an egg layer coop, all I would do would be get some plywood panels, maybe T111 siding, and screw that from the inside so that they have coverage here, they have coverage here, or probably from this side would be better. So they have coverage on this front half, and then on the sides and the front. And so they can kind of get out of the weather. For 20 or 30 hens, there's plenty of room in here. You would need to add some nest box situation, whether that be building something out of lumber or using milk crates. That works great too. I've seen people success with those. But I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I hope you got something from this video. If you want the extra information in a write-up format, drop your email through the link below. Thanks for watching. I'm Scott with the Sustainable Homestead Institute.